Once upon a time, in a beautiful village in India, there lived a young girl named Maya. Maya was a weaver of silk saris. People from far and wide came to buy her creations because they were the most beautiful in the land. One day, a traveller visited Maya's workshop. He saw a deep blue sari she was working on and gasped. "Maya, this blue is exactly like the ocean in the old stories of the Ramayana," he said. Maya smiled, but she was confused. "I haven't read the Ramayana in years," she said. "I just chose this colour because it felt right." Later that afternoon, a poet stopped by. He looked at the golden patterns on the borders of the sari. "These gold threads remind me of a poem by Mirabai," he whispered. "It's as if you were singing her song with your hands." Maya was even more surprised. "I don't know that poem," she replied. "I thought I was making something completely original, something all my own." After listening about Maya's confusion, Julia Kristeva, the Bulgarian-French philosopher and literary critic who lives in Paris, visited Maya. The old woman came to India to solve Maya's puzzle. Maya told her about the traveller and the poet. "They see other stories and songs in my work," Maya said. "Does that mean my work isn't mine? Am I just a copycat?" Julia sat down at the loom and touched the threads. "Maya," she said softly, "nothing we create is a lonely island. Every sari you weave is like a beautiful mosaic." "Think of it this way," Julia continued. "When you pull a golden thread, your hands are dancing to a rhythm set by 1,000 years of weavers before you. When you choose a dye, you are unknowingly echoing the prayers and songs you heard as a baby. Even the air you breathe is filled with the whispers of old books and plays." Maya looked at her loom differently. She realized she wasn't just a girl making a sari, she was a crossroads. "This is what I call intertextuality," Julia explained. "A book or a sari is never truly finished. It is a place where many other texts meet, collide, and talk to each other. You aren't just an author, you are a guest at a giant, never-ending dinner party of ideas." Maya finally understood. She wasn't losing her originality, she was part of a giant, shimmering web of connections. From that day on, whenever Maya sat at her loom, she listened. She listened to the hidden threads of history, myth, and life, and she wove them all into her own new, beautiful story. The lesson here is that intertextuality tells us that every text, a book, a movie, or a sari, is made up of bits and pieces of other things we have seen, heard, or read before. We are all weaving on an infinite loom. This is the story of the master chef and the secret spice. Once in a busy city, there was a chef named Kabir. Kabir was famous for his original signature soup. People loved it because it tasted like nothing they had ever had before. One day, a young student named Sarah tasted the soup. She smiled and said, "Chef, this soup reminds me of the broth my grandmother used to make in her village." Kabir was a bit offended. "No, Sarah," he said, "this is my own recipe, I invented it myself." Then a food critic visited. He took a sip and wrote in his notebook, "Kabir soup is a brilliant conversation with the history of French cooking, but it has the spicy kick of ancient Indian street food." Kabir was confused. He hadn't studied French cooking and he wasn't trying to copy street food. He went to his mentor, an old philosopher named Julia. "Julia," he complained, "everyone says my soup is like something else. Is nothing I do truly mine?" Julia took him to the pantry. She pointed to the jars of salt, pepper, cumin, and thyme. "Kabir," she said, "did you create these spices? Did you grow the first carrot or invent the idea of boiling water?" "Of course not," Kabir said. "That is intertextuality," Julia explained. "In the world of stories and art, we don't use spices, we use texts. A text is any story, movie, song, or idea that already exists. When you write a book or cook a soup, you are not working in a vacuum. You are standing in a kitchen filled with every flavor that came before you. Your soup is delicious because it talks to your grandmother's broth and the French techniques. You didn't plagiarize them, you transformed them. You took the old ingredients of culture and rearranged them into a new mosaic." Explaining the concept with examples. To understand Julia Kristeva's concept, think of it this way. No text is an island. Every piece of writing is a productivity that absorbs and transforms other texts. 1. The Lion King's movie. If you watch The Lion King, you might think it's just a story about lions, but it is deeply intertextual. The Hamlet thread. A prince's father, the king, is killed by his uncle, and the prince must decide whether to take revenge. The biblical thread. It echoes the story of Moses and Joseph. The intersection. It transforms these old texts into a modern African-inspired musical. 2. The Ramayana in modern India. Think of how many times you see the Ramayana in your daily life. Example, a modern Hindi movie might show a hero protecting his brother. Even if they don't mention the names, Rama and Lakshmana, the audience reads the movie through the text of the Ramayana. The old story is whispering inside the new one. 3. The architecture of a city. Even a building can be intertextual. Example, a modern skyscraper in Dubai might use glass modernism, but have arches that look like an ancient mosque, Islamic architecture. The building is a crossroads where two different histories meet. The Kristevan summary. In traditional thinking, we look for the author, the chef. In intertextuality, we look at the textual space, the soup. We ask, how is this new thing talking to the old things? How does the meaning change when these two worlds collide? As Julia would say, the text is a mosaic of quotations. Any text is the absorption and transformation of another. This is the story of the river and the many mirrors. Once there was a writer named Arundhati. She wrote a famous book called The God of Small Things. It was set in a beautiful place in Kerala where big rivers met the sea. Many people read her book and said, Arundhati, your story is so new. It is like nothing we have ever seen. But Arundhati just smiled. She knew her book was like a great river. A river looks like one thing, but it is actually made of water from many different streams. One day, a wise traveller named Julia Kristeva came to visit. She looked at Arundhati's book and didn't see just one story. She saw a mosaic. Look here, Julia said, pointing to a page. When you describe the twins, I can hear the whispers of Shakespeare. It's like the comedy of errors is hiding in your garden. Then Julia pointed to a scene about a dance. And here, she said, you are not just writing words. You are weaving the rhythm of Kathakali dancers into your sentences. The ancient stories of the Mahabharata are dancing inside your modern novel. Arundhati nodded. You are right, Julia, I am not a lonely island, I am a crossroads. The critical application, how to read intertextuality. When we use intertextuality to look at a famous novel like The God of Small Things, we stop looking for the original genius and start looking for the transformation. 1. The pretext, what came before. In the novel there are many references to The Sound of Music, a movie, and Heart of Darkness, a Western book. The storyteller's trick, Arundhati doesn't just mention them, she uses them to show how the characters think. She absorbs the old movie and transforms it into a tool to explain Indian life. 2. The small things versus big things. This is the most important part of the mosaic. The collision, the big things, history, the law, the king, collide with the small things, love, children, a toy. The echo, this is exactly what Kalidasa did in Shakuntala. The big, King Dushyanta forgot the small love of Shakuntala because of a big curse. Arundhati is talking to Kalidasa across 1,000 years. 3. The political thread. The novel breathes the air of Kerala's history. The mosaic, it mixes the text of communist politics with the text of the caste system. It shows how these two old stories fight each other in the lives of the characters. The summary for a critic. If you want to apply intertextuality to Indian literature, don't ask, who wrote this? Instead ask, 1. Which ghosts are whispering in this book? Shakespeare, the Vedas, folk songs. 2. How did the author change the old story? Did they make it sadder? Did they make it modern? 3. How do these different threads create a new spark? The lesson, a novel is a busy intersection. To understand the novel, you must look at all the roads that lead into it.